put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Across the world on the interwebs at michaeldukeshow.com, also on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and anywhere else we feel like putting it in the morning. That's how it is. Good morning and welcome to the program. Also broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or translator. Hi, how are you? You ready? Ready to dive into this? Ready to do it? We're getting our game on here. We're getting things ready to rock and roll. It is the Michael Dukes Show, Tuesday edition of the program, and we are up and ready to go. It is Tuesdays are deep dive days. These are the days that we get a chance to talk about things of a state nature with our friend Brad Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. He's coming on board this morning to discuss with us and talk about the weekly top 3, which include the deep dive into things including discussions on why it matters for elections, about who gives money and what the endorsements, what does that all mean? He's also going to cover his top 5 candidates that he's going to be following in this upcoming election season. And finally, what Alaska's place in the oil world is going to look like here in the near future. So we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit and get things started. And we'll see what you guys have to say about that as we jump through. All right, we are going to be covering Brad Keithley here in hour 1, and then in hour 2, it's going to be Chris Story, the man from Homer. He's going to come in on board and talk with us here, and we're going to have a discussion with him about some kind of life coaching lesson. I don't know exactly what it is, what it's going to be, but we're going to have that discussion here in hour 2 on the broadcast this morning. So look forward to that as well. A quick reminder and an addendum, an additive, a footnote. I already told you yesterday that I was going to be taking Friday off for travel. And so we will not be on the air on Friday. And I have actually added to that. I'm also not going to be on the air on Monday. So it's officially going to be a 4-day weekend for me. And we made that decision based on travel plans and some other stuff. So anyway, I will not be here on Friday or the following Monday. We will be returning to the air 1 week from today on the Tuesday, which puts us 1 week out from the primary election and the special election for the U.S. House race. So that's what it's looking like coming up there. So just a note as to what's happening. And so you can tell your friends, tell your relatives, tell everybody you need to know that we're going to be doing that and dealing with that this coming weekend. So Friday and Monday off, just off, not here. You'll have to listen to more podcasts to get caught up or to get your weekly fix for the show. So Don't forget, you can also, of course, join us every morning here this morning on Facebook or on YouTube or Twitch or wherever you want to find us. Just go to any of those platforms and Google my name and you will find us, and we will be there. And you could join us in the chat room where we can all hang out together and talk about stuff. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Feel free to do so. So feel free to jump in on that, and we'll be part of it. All right. Here we go. What are some of the stories that are going to be we're going to be covering here in this morning, and then before we get into it with Brad Keithley? I've only got a couple. First and foremost, Lisa Murkowski never fails to surprise and just, the political chicanery of what's going on here kind of blows my mind. You could see right now that she is desperately reaching out to that moderate and left vote, knowing that she probably does not have enough votes to overcome Kelly Tshibaka in the conservative camp. So now she's trying to ply the waters into the moderate and Democratic camps. Yesterday, she joined on a bipartisan bill that would protect, quote unquote, protect abortion and contraception access. This is from the ADN. The measure itself, though, faces an uncertain future in a Senate that failed to pass a broader measure enshrining abortion rights back in May. And it also comes, of course, as she faces this reelection with abortion emerging as one of the key issues. Despite the bipartisan co-sponsors, well, bipartisan in name only, it's her and Suzanne Collins on the Republican side. So just take that as you will. It is unlikely to clear the 60 votes necessary to overcome the GOP filibuster. In a statement, the senator said that this bill would undo the damage of the Supreme Court's June decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The bill leans on language from Roe v. Wade, Planned Parenthood v. Casey, and other Supreme Court rulings that protected abortion before the court's Dobbs versus Jackson decision back last month. In June, I guess. It would block state regulations that impose an undue burden on women trying to get a pre-viability abortion, according to written statements from the senators. It would also allow states to make reasonable restrictions on post-viability abortion and ensure abortions to protect the life or health of the mother. Murkowski said in a written statement, for 5 decades, reproductive health care decisions were centered with the individual. We cannot go back in time limiting personal freedoms for women. She's the only one of the bill sponsors who's running for re-election this year, and she has faced a wave of criticism for her votes to confirm the 2 justices who later backed the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. And she faces challenges from both the left and the right. Again, I'm going to go along with what Pat Chesbrough says late in the article when she said, I don't think it really addresses the issues that were presented from Roe. She goes, I'm not going to call it a political stunt. I'm going to say that I doubt it would pass even in its current form. Tell me how you're going to not call it a political stunt while calling it a political stunt. Which is exactly what it is. This is a bill that has really no potential to go anywhere, but she wants to put her name on it so she can brandish the shield to those on the left and the middle left who she wants to attract to her cause. Remember who got Lisa Murkowski elected back in 2010 during the Joe Miller debacle. Remember who got her elected then. Remember that they took Scott Adams, who was the Democratic candidate nominated and put forward by the Democratic Party, and they threw him under the bus and just by Scott, and they went all in for Murkowski on that write-in campaign. Just remember that. Just remember that. Remember who got her elected in 2010, 12 years ago, and remember what how she was able to pull that out. This whole thing is a political ploy to up her street cred with the moderates and progressives in the Democratic Party, and of course to solidify it with some of the more moderate Republicans who are center or, barely center right in that. She's trying to carve out. She can't carve into Shabaka's camp, I don't think. I think those people who are supporting Shabaka and who are more conservative, more constitutionally minded, more liberty minded, they know this is not the candidate for her. So where can you go? She will carve into Peltola's camp and swerve into her lane to try and attract those voters. And it'll probably work. They'll probably see her as the only way to stop Kelly Shabaka. But we'll have to see. We will have to see how that works and what goes on from there. But that's the big news on Lisa Murkowski starting today. Yesterday, they had a public forum. It was a candidate forum hosted by Juneau radio station KINY. And they asked a lot of different questions. But one of the big questions that came out of it was a discussion about rank choice voting. And when they were asked about it, Sarah Palin came to the forefront and said that the ranked choice voting system is so frustrating for so many Alaskans. She said it's convoluted and complicated and creating voter confusion. And she said that the system needs to be changed, which, hey, but how long have we been talking about that? The last year and a half, as we've waited for the state of Alaska to step up to the plate to educate voters on how this thing is supposed to work. I mean, this is not anything new, right? Nick Begich says that he agreed that we're going to need to see some of those changes. Begich says campaigns are effectively running a primary and a general at the same time. He said, we're going to run this experiment. We'll see how it goes. But he would like to see Alaska return to the prior system. Meanwhile, Mary Peltola said that she's not a very partisan person, which, okay. She said she is hopeful more moderate candidates will be elected with ranked choice voting, which, again, is the stated goal of many of the people who have been behind ranked choice votings in various places around the country for years, that it eliminates the polarization by eliminating some of the more firebrand on both sides, that it really is a road to the middle. It's a moderate, which I don't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But that's just, it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We'll see how it goes down, but I have a feeling that this is going to be a hot button issue post-election, that how this worked is going to be a very hot button issue come post-election time. So we'll see what it looks like in the end, but that's my feel on it. All right, we're going to be diving into this in just a moment. We got Brad Keithley coming up, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, and we will see what he has to say here in just a moment. Kicking it off with a weekly top three. It is the Michael Duke Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska. We'll be back with more and Brad Keithley right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Hi, how are you guys? How are you going? How's it going? How does this look? How does this sound? How is all this stuff? How's it going? You feeling, is it working? I've got YouTube and Twitch and Facebook all up in one spot. Does it feel like it's working? I saw Brian said earlier that it sounded tinny. Sounds a bit tinny. How's the audio? That's one thing I really didn't work on last night at all, was the audio, because it seemed to pick it right up. I'm trying to see if there's anything that I can adjust on the back end here with this. Sounds good. Audio seems fine. Green to green. Audio's good on Facebook. Okay. I did not get the Biden and Skyrim deepfake. I'll have to go look at that, Anthony. Sorry, I was a little busy this morning. I was trying to get all this set up yesterday. The multicasting service that I used for multicasting to all the... Anyway, apparently it got sold like 2 months ago, and they never bothered to put anything on the website that said, hey, they were shutting down the service. So that's what happened yesterday, is the service was sold and they shut it all down. So I ended up having to go look, and I finally started looking at ones, and I finally had to pop for one that, well, it was money. Let's just put it that way. It's amazing what a few $100s can do to make everything work. But I did get a lot more bells and whistles. I got a lot more bells and whistles like this. Yeah, I could basically do all kinds of cool stuff inside of the software. It allows me to do some pretty amazing things. I'm kind of digging it. So we're going to be moving around with a lot of this. It gives me a little bit more control, and I can bring a lot more folks on board. Now the random live testing makes sense last night. Anthony, yes, it does. Look at that. You're on the screen. Yeah. See, we can do all different kinds of stuff now. So, seeing you were testing yesterday evening had me concerned I'd miss something. Yeah, no, I was working on it for a big chunk of yesterday, trying to make sure that everything was lined up and the bells and whistles and yada, yada, yada. But here we go. And it's going to give us an opportunity to have other people on board, and it's going to be fun stuff. All right, let me get this squared away here. I need to close down. I got too many windows open right now. We'll get that going on here. Launch the meeting. There we go. We're going to get on board with Brad Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Hello, computer. There we go. I was like, what the heck is going on? Zoom was not cooperating this morning. So it's good to know we got it all squared away. Get this tuned down just a little bit. We got about a minute here before we're going to be involved in this. There we go. Join with computer audio. Hey, look at you. It was fighting me every step of the way this morning. I don't know why. It was like just, open, close. You ready to go?
I am. And I'm amazed the technology's working.
Yeah, well, it's just working as good as it can this morning. We're good. But we did get, it's got some cool bells and whistles, man. I will say that this is going to be kind of a new era. We're going to get some of this stuff squared away, so it's going to be fun stuff. So all right, Brad. Well, we're 30 seconds out, so hold the line. We're going to jump back into this. Brad Keithley, our guest, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Please like and share this show. Please like and follow the show page. We will. Whoa, I just closed a window that I wasn't supposed to. All right, we're going to be back with more The Michael Duke Show. Let's get it going on. Here we go. All right, welcome back to the program, The Michael Duke Show. Ready to jump in and do some damage here. Our weekly guest is Brad Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. He comes in for what we like to call the weekly top three, which are the top three items that are important to, in his mind, as to what we are facing here in the state of Alaska. And he joins us this morning, ready to rock and roll. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Michael, I'm doing great today. How about you?
There are no complaints, my friend. No complaints. All right. So number one of the weekly top three, let's get right into it because we're going to have a busy morning this morning, is the effect of money and endorsements and what it tells us about the candidates. And there's some pretty interesting stuff out there. So hit us with, let's start off with number one and tell us where we're at here.
Well, there is. The reporters are starting to dig into the 30-day report that the candidates had to file 30 days in front of the election, showing who their donors are. We talked about some of that last week, but as the reporters dig more and more into it, and as I take a look at the filings, there's some intriguing things in there. What you're seeing is sort of what you'd expect, but you're seeing it with big money. Bill Walker is getting a lot of his money in big donations coming from out of state. He has three big $100,000 donors. One's in Kansas, one's in two are in New York. One's in Kansas, two are in New York. That's where his $300,000 donors came from. Dunleavy isn't far behind. It depends on how you count his brother, who lives in Texas, but his brother is his biggest donor, who lives in Texas. Another of his big donors lives in Minnesota, who the governor describes as a hunting and fishing buddy. $100,000 from his hunting and fishing buddy. I wish I had buddies like that.
Man, I wish. Hey, Brad, I need a buddy like that. Let me know, okay?
And but the third is from in-state, Bob Penny, the Kenai Sports Fishermen's Association, and so at least Dunleavy has some of his one of his big donors coming from in-state. Les Guerra has two smaller big donors, just over 10,000. Both of them are in state, one in Juneau, one in Anchorage. Both of them are lawyers. The Fairbanks news miner, Linda Hersey, did what I thought was a really good analysis. What would the donors look like if you stripped out the big money? And it's interesting. If you take the $100,000 plus, if you take the six-figure donations out, Guerra leads in the money, not by a lot, but he has 500 plus odd thousand ahead. Bill Walker's second, if you count just in-state money, and or you just count the take out the big donors, and Dunleavy's third. Again, the margins aren't huge, but they sort of come together. I mean, all three candidates come together if you take out the big money. So I think that's telling you that Guerra has more of a grassroots campaign, for good or bad. Dunleavy has somewhat of a grassroots Alaska campaign. Walker is being financed a lot by out of state people. You look at the endorsements. Walker's got a union endorsement, a couple of union endorsements. The bellwether, though, for me, in terms of endorsements, was one Walker announced this past week. Jim Jensen of Linden Transport and co-chair of the Keep Alaska Competitive campaign, someone I like to call, or I like to refer to as Mr. Top 20%. Jensen endorsed Walker. And if you look at the endorsements and the editorials that are coming out in support of Walker, they're basically who you would expect given Walker's last term. It's the top 20% who benefit by Walker using PFD cuts to finance spending. And it's the beneficiaries of government spending. Local government, Mike Navarre has endorsed him. Others in local government have endorsed him. The education community, the university community. So you're seeing that division that you would sort of expect, but it's being confirmed. The top 20% and the the unions and the government beneficiaries, government spending beneficiaries supporting Walker. Dunleavy, sort of the business community generally, a lot of top 20%ers in there, oil sort of in there, and Gara, also the education community and the government beneficiary community, but smaller donations from them and less endorsements. So the division in the governor's race is looking very. It's confirming, I guess, what your priors would be. It's confirming that Walker is sort of the top 20% candidate, is the government spending candidate, is the out of state good government candidate. Gara is more the grassroots candidate, and Dunleavy is sort of the business community candidate.
It's interesting to watch, and it's interesting to see some of the verbiage. One of the opinion pieces about this was from the Juneau Empire, some educator that threw out there, but you could already see some of the narrative shaping up here. The issue our state faces are significant with regard to education, the teacher shortage and the compounded years of defunding preschool through 12 and post-secondary education systems in Alaska. The defunding this is the narrative that they're going to run on, and this is one of the reasons why she is supporting Walker, because again, he is going to be the big government candidate who's going to pour more. You could see it's exactly what it is. We need more money for this. Who's going to support my pet project? There we go.
And you got that. So you've got that side, and the title of that piece is, by the way, I'm a longtime educator and I'm supporting Walker Dragas. You've got that. You've got the big government spending crowd, and then on the other side, you've got the top 20%. You got Jim Jensen stepping in as a co-chair for Walker. The top 20% on the other side. So the funding side, the funding for this big government is the top 20%. Take it out of the PFD crowd. So it's what you would have guessed going into this from Walker's prior term. But it's being confirmed as you look through the donations, as you look through the people he's listing as co-chairs, as you look through the people who are writing op-eds in support of his campaign. It's being confirmed by that. We'll talk a little bit more about the legislative side in the second segment, but I will mention that there's the legislative side is interesting. Matt Buxton writes a blog on. Writes a blog several places, but he has a Substack blog, and he has gone through the legislative races in detail. Part one he published yesterday, which was the funding behind the Senate, analyzing the donations behind the Senate campaigns, state Senate campaigns, and the title of his is "Progressive Candidates Hold Fundraising Edge in Most Key Races for Legislature." So it's sort of confirming, sort of enforcing what you're seeing in the governor's race, with Gara getting a lot more grassroots donations, not relying on big money, but picking up grassroots donations, and you're sort of seeing that come through in the legislative races as well. I will say, conservatives, if you take money as an indicator of support, as an indicator of election results, you shouldn't entirely. But if you do take that to some degree as an indicator, I would say that the Democrats are doing somewhat better than Republicans are.
Yeah, when you look at some of those numbers, and it is a little eye-opening for sure. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, one more thing that I think to mention on the governor's race, again, in terms of support and in terms of where this is going. Walker released a poll yesterday that's sort of worthless because it's not really taking into account ranked choice voting. But you take what you get and you spin it the way you can. Walker had a poll run, evidently, because the poll says it was prepared by Hayes Corporation for the Hayes polling for the Walker Tricus campaign. Walker released a poll, and it's an interesting poll. It shows a head-to-head between Dunleavy and Guerra, and a head-to-head between and Walker. Dunleavy wins both. He beats Walker by less than he beats Guerra. He beats Guerra by more than he beats Walker, but not by much. And what that really does is I think confirm the survey that Ivan Moore did, and we talked about last week, which shows Dunleavy ahead, Guerra and Walker sort of neck and neck, with whoever's going to finish fourth in the ranked choice voting, becoming very significant. So it's an interesting poll from the standpoint of really confirming, I think, what we saw from Ivan last week or the week before, in terms of Walker and Guerra sort of splitting that progressive vote, and Dunleavy to some degree consolidating the conservative, at least the business conservative vote.
Brad Keithley is our guest, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Brad, give us a tease into number 2 now before we jump into the break a little early.
Well, Michael, I'm starting to track legislative races, starting to think about legislative races more deeply, and I've picked 5. At least at this point, I've picked 5 that I think are sort of the bellwether races, and I've picked them out of certain categories. And so we're going to talk about those, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the money that's showing up in the legislative races that based on the analysis that Matt Buxton did.
All right, Brad Keithley continues with us. It is the Michael Duke Show, broadcasting live. Don't forget, you can go out and join us on Facebook or YouTube during the break. If you'd like to come in and be part of it, we'd love to hear what you have to say. Feel free to dive in. We'll continue with more right after this. It is the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
What is that?
Common sense. Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Duke Show. Radio.
Okay, we're in the break. We're proceeding ahead here with Brad Keithley. Wow, this software does some amazing stuff. I'm sorry, I'm amazed at some of the limitations that I had before that are no longer there, including seeing all the replies. That used to be in the other software that I couldn't see when somebody replied to somebody else on Facebook. I couldn't see the replies. So all I saw was the main chat branch, which is good. I like it.
You spend more money, you get more bells and whistles.
Apparently, you spend more money. Ooh, that was painful. But I did it because why not? I guess we all got to grow up one day and become a real mid-budget radio program instead of a low-budget radio program. But that's okay. It's good stuff. I'm really loving it so far. Let me see if there's any comments in the chat room here that are worth reading out and talking about.
You know, Michael, I want to mention one thing.
Sure.
Back to the governor's race for a moment. I think it matters who finishes fourth. There is Jeff Landfield did an analysis and says, you know, it as of this moment, it's sort of a toss up between Charlie Pierce and Chris Kirka on who's going to finish fourth. And I think it matters who finishes fourth. And here's why. I think the Charlie Pierce voters are more likely to rank Dunleavy second than the Kirka voters. I think the Kirka voters are more likely to do one and done, to vote for their candidate and then to stop marking the ballot and go home. And if Kirka finishes fourth, without those second choice votes, I'm a little concerned that Dunleavy won't get to 50% after. This is based on the
right
on the Ivan Moore poll, and assuming Dunleavy's ahead. But I'm a little concerned that Dunleavy doesn't get over 50% if the fourth choice candidate doesn't have a lot of, or if the fourth ranked candidate doesn't have a lot of second choice ballots for Dunleavy. And if we go to the third choice candidate, if Dunleavy doesn't get over 50% after the fourth choice, if we go to the third choice candidate, then I think you're going to have a real issue in terms of whoever's finished second, Walker or Guerra, in terms of that, the second choice is off that ballot, pushing them over the top. So unlike some who are saying, yeah, it really doesn't matter who finishes fourth. I think it matters a lot, frankly, who finishes fourth. If you think about it in terms of, is that fourth ranked candidate gonna have voters who go down the ballot and pick a second choice?
Right. No, and I agree. I think that his voters, Kirk's voters, are much more likely to basically be all in on one with no secondary ranking. I think that I would agree that Charlie's voters would have more of a propensity to rank the red, so to speak, in that race. I myself will be ranking red and yellow for the whole race at this point. So I'll be doing some write-ins more than anything else. I'm definitely not ranking anything on the Democratic ticket as far as that goes. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you and this is what Fred Van Bennekom said to us, Dr. Van Bennekom, of course, who's the expert from the Gladwell. No, I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the institute. Anyway, he said that number two is that is really where the race breaks down into is who are you voting for in number two, because they have a tendency to more than likely be the candidate in the end. And in fact, there were Republicans who were running together basically in combination for various seats that were saying, no matter what you do, pick us for number one or pick us for number two. Even if you don't like us, pick us for number two, because they saw that there was power in that. So this whole thing is a mess, but it's hard to analyze because we have no real way of knowing and no real track record. But I agree. I think that fourth place is going to be very important. Now, my fingers are crossed that Charlie gets across the line into the fourth place. We'll see. Because really it is, it's going to be him and Kirka. I think at this point, they're the only two that have the amount of support possible to get into that position. But I don't know. Quick thoughts on who you think who's going to make it?
Well, I hope it's Charlie too. I mean, Walker as governor again, I think is a disaster. Les would be interesting, but I think, of the three, I think Dunleavy's probably the best. But Kirk is just throwing so many flames out there.
Oh yeah,
at everybody. I think he's telling us that he's not going to support a second choice candidate. It's going to be all in for him, and I think that he's going to his supporters will tend to follow that as well. So okay. I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the fourth.
Here we go. We're going to wrap. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share, like and follow. Subscribe, ring the bell. Let's get to it, shall we? All right, continuing now, Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Our guest, the weekly top three continues right now. This hour of the program, by the way, being brought to you by your friends over there at Satellite West for all your communications needs, be they satellite, cellular, VHF radio, carrier pigeon, or even two cans with strings. Those guys over there at Satellite West, they can get you hooked up one way or the other. Find out more about them at satellitewest.com. All right, Brad, number two. The top five or so candidates races that you are really watching in this election. Of course, we know that the legislative races, 59 of those races are up, 59 out of 60 are up. But we know that at this point, the primary really for 58 of those 59 means nothing. It's essentially a fancy and expensive poll to kind of test the waters to see where people are. I guess it will give the candidates some data to know where they may need to work on things. But really, essentially, they're all in because of the ranked choice voting. It's always the top 4, and only 1 out of 59 races has more than 4 candidates. So everybody's going through for the most part. But let's get started here on your top 5 and what the money means and the fundraising and all that other kind of stuff. Let's fold it all together.
Well, it's the top 5 races, and I've sort of picked them from categories, from 5 categories. The first category is pro-PFD Republicans against top 20% Republicans. And that shows up in a lot of races. It shows up in Roger Holland, Senator Holland versus Kathy Giessel, the rematch there. Holland, a pro-PFD, Giessel, a top 20%er. Shows up in the Shower race, Shower versus Massey. Again, Massey, we've talked about this on our previous program. Massey, clearly a top 20% pick to go in and try to take out Shower. Shower, a firm pro-PFD candidate. Shows up in Verhagen Bishop. Elijah Verhagen being a pro-PFD candidate, click. Bishop being clearly a top 20% Republican. The one that I've picked in that category to follow closely is the Ken McCarty Kelly Merrick Senate race in Eagle River. I picked that one because it's gonna attract a lot of money. It's Laura Reinbold's old district, so there's a question about how conservative that district's going to be. And really, I think it'll be a big player in terms of how the Senate comes out. Interestingly enough, well, not interestingly enough, predictably enough, Kelly Merrick's ahead on the money. She's got $64,000 in donations compared to Ken McCarty's $26,000. She has $48,000 remaining in the bank. McCarty has $3,000 remaining in the bank, and frankly, McCarty's in debt because his debt is higher than a higher balance than the money he has remaining. So clearly, the money is lining up. The top 20% money is lining up behind Kelly Merrick. I think that's going to be an interesting race. I think McCarty's clearly going to have a chance there because of what that district is, but that's going to show, I think, the impact of money in a state Senate race. The second category is a pro-PFD Republican against a top 20% Democrat. That I've picked. That shows up again in some races. I've picked Costello, the Mia Costello versus Matt Clayman race, Senate race in South Anchorage, West Anchorage, as sort of the bellwether for that. Mia is a pro-PFD Republican. Matt is an anti or a top 20% Democrat. And again, Clayman is ahead on money. He's raised a heck of a lot of money. Let's see, $110,000, almost $111,000 for Clayman, $14,000 for Mia. Clayman's got $79,000 remaining in the bank. Mia's got $17,000 remaining in the bank. So again, top 20% money showing up for a top 20% candidate thus far in the race. The third category, and this may be the only race in the state that's like this, a pro-PFD Democrat against you don't really know Republican, Scott Kawasaki. The race between Scott Kawasaki and Jim Matherly up in Fairbanks. Kawasaki's been a pro-PFD Democrat consistently. You look at Matherly, you don't really know what Matherly is what Matherly's position is on, frankly, much of anything. Scott's ahead in the money so far, and so that's an interesting sign. Scott's a good grassroots campaigner, a good grassroots fundraiser, and that if you're looking at this from the PFD issue as I do, that's a good sign in that race. The Democrat on Democrat, there's some Democrat on Democrat primaries. The one I've picked to look at most is pro-ish PFD Harriet Drummond versus clearly top 20% Zach Fields.
Right.
That also shows up in the Garantar versus Forrest Dunbar Senate race in East Anchorage. Drummond's doing okay. She's got some money so far. Fields is picking up top 20% money. I think that's going to be an interesting race as well. And then the fifth candidate is, and again, there may not be many of these, but the fifth race that I'm focusing on is again in Fairbanks, and it's a free for all. It's the Bart LeBon re-election with Kelly Nash running as a Republican and with Dilbert running as a Democrat. Clearly, Kelly Nash is a pro PFD Republican. Dilbert sort of in the middle, and Bart is clearly a top 20% Republican. And that's, talk about where ranked choice voting is going to play an interesting role.
Absolutely.
That race is going to be one, and I think that's going to be an interesting race as well. I haven't seen the fundraising numbers on that. I suspect Bart's going to have some pretty good top 20% money in there, but that's the fifth category that I'm looking at.
I mean, at one point, this is where the campaigns, especially in that LeBon race, the campaign slogan for Kelly Nash and company should all be, we're number 2 because we try harder. So make sure you vote us for number 2, because I think it's going to come down to some slicing and dicing in the follow-up rounds of what's going on.
It's interesting in that race. If you look at this from the PFD, if you look at this from the fiscal issue, Nash and Dilbert are much more closely aligned than LeBon is. And I would be tempted, if I were voting in that district, I would be tempted to vote Nash 1, Dilbert 2, and leave LeBon off the ranking. Because when you look at it, it's odd, but when you look at it, the Democrat and the conservative Republican are much more closely aligned on that fiscal issue, preserving the PFD,
right,
than Bart LeBon is. So we'll see if that starts showing up in the race as an important factor. But it's the reason I'm following it, because it's one of those few races where Democrats and conservative Republicans are more aligned than the Republican is with the top 20% Republican.
Maybe this one slipped by me and you said it, and I just was technically working on something here in the background, but the Giesel-Holland race, the money raising discrepancy there is pretty significant. Your thoughts on that?
Well, Giesel's a top 20% Republican. She's got oil money who doesn't want to see the PFD preserved. They want to see PFD cuts taken. She's got top 20% business money behind her, and Roger really hasn't raised that much, even since even as you see on the chart, even since the end of the session. But the money, Michael, was like that in the last race, and
right.
Roger beat Kathy. Now, Kathy's votes against the PFD were fresh the last race around, and they're not going to be as fresh this time. So you sort of wonder if that's going to have some impact. But money, that's why I'm following Merrick and McCarty, for example. The money's going to be huge on Merrick's side. Already you see the money heavy on Massey against Shower. You see the money heavy on Bishop against Verhagen. There's going to be money on the top 20% candidate side. I mean, they want to preserve. They want to preserve their ability to get off scot-free,
right,
paying for government.
But that doesn't, again, just because they have the most money doesn't mean that they're going to be the winning candidate. Again, the Holland and Giesel race in the past proves that, if nothing else. There's been many times when candidates have been ousted, but it just depends on how long the candidate's memories or the constituency's memories last. That's for sure.
Exactly right. And that's why these races are interesting to me. I mean, the Republican on Republican races are interesting to me to see if the pro PFD candidates, the more fiscally conservative candidates, can outlast or survive that money attack that we're seeing in these races.
Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. 4 minutes now. I suppose we can move on to number 3, which is Alaska's place in the oil world. What does it mean? Where are we going to, what is our place going to, how are we going to find this out?
Well, we've talked a lot about we've talked a lot about Willow on various programs. We've talked a lot about last week. We talked about the Wood Mackenzie report that said Alaska was a disadvantaged basin because of the environmental issues associated with production there, or the carbon issues associated with production there. And we've talked a little bit about PICA, but we're sort of coming up on a real world test of how investors feel about Alaska, about investing in additional production in Alaska. Santos Oil Search, before Santos, has gotten PICA to the point where it's ready to go. It's gotten all the permits, all of the approvals that PICA needs in order to be able to go forward on phase one of the PICA project. Big phase one, 80,000 barrels a day is the estimate of phase one production. They've gotten it all sort of street ready or shovel ready, to use the term, to go forward. The question now is financing. Santos Oil Search before them, and now Santos has said they're going to make an FID decision, final investment decision. That's what FID stands for, final investment decision, on phase one mid-year. Well, we're in July, and Santos just released its second quarter corporate report, and they reaffirmed that they're looking at mid-year 2022 to make a decision on going forward on phase one. So, assuming mid-year means sometime by September, sometime by the beginning of the third quarter, or by late September, we're coming up on that decision of whether or not Santos is going to make the investment decision. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about Santos having PICA out for sale, at least a portion of PICA out for sale, wanting to get to spread the risk, wanting to mitigate their risk, and get a little bit of cash up front by selling an interest in the PICA field. We've heard those rumors for a long time. We know that Santos has had a data room open in Australia, that people have visited it. We're going to find out, I think, in the next couple of months how real this project is and how willing Santos is, either on its own or or positioned with somebody else going forward on that project. And I think that's a real world test of where Alaska's oil investment and oil production future lies.
All right. Well, we'll keep our ear to the ground and our eyes to the sky. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you coming in and joining us.
Michael, as always, thanks for having me.
Folks, we're out of time for this segment. We got more coming up in hour two, including Chris Story, the man from Homer, for our weekly life coaching lesson. That's up next. We'll be back with more right after this. Okay. Did you notice in Matt Buxton's article, the one discussion on the fundraising about the Defend Our Constitution? Do you see what their fundraising had hit in that talk?
I don't remember the number. It was high.
$332,000 already for the Defend Our Constitution. That is the anti-con group out there. I mean, that's a significant money at this point. And a lot of those contributions coming from one or more of the unions. They definitely do not want to see the state's constitution opened up and some changes to be made. But I thought that was a little eye-opening, considering the con movement has really barely got started at this point.
Well, and if I recall that portion of the article, it also says the con money, the or the support of Constitutional Convention has zero in terms of dollars. That there's no formal organization, that there's no PACs, there's no money that's been put into that effort. So it's 300 and whatever thousand you said to zero right now in terms of dollars. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons that people. We've talked about some of them on the show. There's a lot of reasons that people oppose opening up the special interests, government spending, those interested in government spending, those interested in preserving the PFD as a funding tool, and cuts PFD cuts as a funding tool. Those interested in preserving, I mean, one of the provisions in the Constitution is guaranteeing retirement, government employee retirement above everything else in terms of government spending. So there's a lot of reasons that those tied to current government spending and those tied to current government programs don't want to see the Constitution opened up.
Yeah, no, I just thought it was an interesting take, because it really, I'm sorry, 320, not 332, 320,000. And this is from the Juneau Empire. But 100,000 of that comes from 2 out-of-state PACs, the American Federation of Teachers and the IBEW PAC Education Fund and the NEA. So, I mean, they've definitely got a skin in this game and making sure that the Constitution does not get cracked open for various reasons.
Yeah, exactly right. There's other, people who subscribe. I think this is a subscription only publication by Buxton. I think this is one of his behind the curtain publications. But I mean, there's some interesting numbers in here. Gary Stevens is ahead, has $58,000 compared to Heath Smith's $24,000. But what's really interesting about that is Stevens only has $3,000 remaining. Of that $58,000, only has $3,000 remaining. Heath Smith has $7,000 remaining. So there's some that's another one of those Republican on Republican pro PFD versus top 20% candidates. There's a lot of interesting. There's going to be a lot of interesting races in here. I don't think the money is finalized yet by any stretch of the imagination, but as Matt says at the headline, progressives are running ahead so far. Generally speaking, progressives and what he calls moderate Republicans, what I call top 20% Republicans, are sort of uniformly running ahead. One exception to that, Tuckerman is ahead of Jesse Bjorkman by quite a bit. Tuckerman has $78,000 raised to Jesse's $21,000,
and he
has $32,000 remaining against Jesse's $13,000,
earning the severe disdain of Matt Buxton and the excoriation of Matt Buxton for how dare they. Yeah, I mean, you have to. I love to read this stuff just with a grain of salt, but definitely that's one of the bright spots in the whole thing. Is the Babcock Bjorkman race there down in the peninsula, but a lot of interesting races, Brad. I mean, and we're going to get a feel for this, especially after this upcoming election. Like I said, it's acting more like a poll than anything else. We'll get a feel for where everybody's sitting when it comes down.
It is, and as I say, I'm going to be looking at it through these 5 categories: Republicans on Republicans, pro PFD Democrats against top 20% Republicans, and so forth. I think that's really, to me, that's the way to really, sort of grab hold of the dynamics that are going on in the race.
Yeah, absolutely. Final thoughts, Brad, as we get ready. Now I'm going to be coming back next Tuesday full of vim and vigor for my vacation because I've decided to take Friday and Monday off. Yes, that's right. Friday and Monday. I decided the second one just last night. I decided with the travel time, it was just too tight to get it done. So what are we looking at for next week, huh? You
decided that or Terry decided that?
I'll never tell. I'll never tell. She thinks about me all the time. So she's like, you're going to be tired. It's going to be late and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, she really took care of me. But what are we going to be touching on? What are you looking at for next week? Quickly here, less than a minute.
Oh, I'll be looking at any fundraising news or any positions, continuing to look at it through a fiscal lens. And looking, I'm really looking. I'm really looking forward to what Santos does on Pika. I think that's going to tell us a lot about Alaska's oil future.
Well, definitely going to be interesting. We're going to watch all that, and we will continue on. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Thank you, my friend. We appreciate you coming in and joining us today.
Michael, as always, thanks for having me.
It's good to see you. Thank you for being part of the show today. All right, folks. We're getting ready to dive into this. We got more coming up. Chris Story in hour 2, plus I don't know, whatever I want to talk about here in the next segment. How about that? Maybe we should open up the phone lines, I guess. See what you have to say. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Yep, across the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com, where you'll find the audio-only live stream, plus links to all of our social media sites, including Facebook and YouTube and Twitch. Go in there and check it out, where we got links to those, so you can join us in the chat room. We can have interactions and talk with your fellow listeners and everybody else. It's a great place to be. That's all the internet stuff. And then, of course, broadcasting across the state of Alaska on your favorite radio station and FM translator. And there's a list of all those at michaeldukeshow.com as well. Hi, how are you? Welcome back to hour 2 of the broadcast. If you just finished, if you just missed it, that's what I meant to say. We just finished with Brad Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. We had a good discussion on, pretty much a bunch of stuff about the elections and campaigns and donations and monies. And I recommend that you go back and hit it on the podcast if you missed any of it to get caught up for the weekly top 3. And that's, of course, over at you can find the podcast, wherever you find podcasts, CastBox, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Just sign up and hit subscribe, and I will automatically be downloaded to your inbox every day, and you don't have to go search for it or anything else, and it's going to be good. So I really enjoy that. So come on down and check it out. Hour 2 now of the program, and we're getting ready to start a discussion here in just a few moments with Chris Story, the man from Homer, who's going to give us our weekly PMA boost, positivity break, our life coaching lesson, as we like to say it. That is the place to go. He's going to be joining us here in a few minutes, and we'll be talking about a variety of stuff. It'll be all fun. So I guess housekeeping. Is the new word of the day. Just so that you know, in case you missed it, we are going to be off the air, not the station. I will be on hiatus on Friday. I also made a decision that because of my travel plans and everything else, I'm also going to be hiatus on Monday, because it was just going to be, I was going to try and just kill myself to get back and be here on time and do all it. But no, it's just, my wife talked me off the ledge. So this Friday and Monday, I will be on hiatus, and you will be fixed with regular programming this coming weekend. So I will have a 4-day weekend, and you guys will just have to suffer in silence. No, there'll be alternate programming on the stations. It'll be fine. And if you really can't get your fix, you can always catch up on the past podcasts that you miss, or go back and listen to the ones that you really, loved and wanted. And you can listen to them again and again. The replay value is immense on many of these podcasts. Anyway, you can go back and enjoy that and do what you need to do. Spotify, says Barbara. Spotify in the chat room. Yep, that's my preferred method of listening to my podcast. When I listen to I hardly ever listen to I only listen to the podcast usually just to check the audio quality and anything else, because I was there, I lived it. I don't need to listen to it again. But anyway, feel free to enjoy the podcast while I am off on vacation on Friday and Monday. So I will be returning to the airwaves next Tuesday, 1 week from today. So now, before you panic, because I know everybody's panicking, we are going to have some firearms discussions on Thursday of this week. Thursday. We're going to have some discussions about that. And so it's going to be a good discussion on Thursday. Tomorrow on the program, I don't know. I've reached out again. We'll have to see if we can. I'm still working on trying to get Sarah Palin back on the program for the first time in years, but working to get her back on the program. I've been working on some of the other candidates. Potentially, we may hear from Charlie Pierce one more time. I'm really trying to get Charlie as much exposure as possible, so that, we can see who that number 4 candidate is going to be. And yes, we may actually also check in with Ben Carpenter to check in on the grand jury issue, which was going on down in the Kenai. So hopefully, fingers crossed, all double fingers crossed, that's all going to work out, and we're going to see more about that, right? We're going to see more about that. All right. I guess we'll just open the phone lines. I guess I don't really have anything else to say this morning. I mean, political wise, other than, my gosh, the season has hardly started, and I'm really already just exhaustipated by most of the news going on already. And I guess I'm just thankful that I don't live in Anchorage, because have you been watching the dust up and the tete-a-tete and the mayor overriding the veto, or vetoing rather, the ordinance that would give them the assembly the right, or in the process, to remove the mayor from office without a vote of the people, and then them overriding that veto. And I mean, it's like all out political warfare in Anchorage right now. I would not want to. No. You could not pay me to take part in that madness that is down there in Anchorage right now. And the only reason I mention it, because as I've said many times, as goes Anchorage, so goes the rest of the state. I mean, they are a bellwether for many changes that we've seen around the state of Alaska. And I guess we should be paying attention to it, because it is a hot brown chocolate mess down there. I can't imagine how, I just can't imagine what it's like down there. So anyway, watching it, and we'll keep our ear to the ground on that and see what's going on. But other than that, that's really the only other hot button thing that I've seen out there that I've been watching. But I do have some calls here, so I guess we'll go over the phones and start things off with a discussion with you to see what you have to say, because that's how we roll. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good morning, Bob the voter, Fairbanks.
Hello, Bob in Fairbanks. What's on your mind?
I'm thinking we need to get on a track like the Democrats are always on, where they label everything, and the news media gets it and reports it 55 times. Everybody says the same thing until the crowd believes it. So
right, you're talking.
I think we should name the coronavirus thing we got going on. That's the Fauci flu, and the election is called the midterm variant.
The midterm.
That's how they're going to pound that one through it. And then anytime you see Walker, you just think dividend thief. And he basically, since he got in office, told it every year since then.
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
it might not
we
be.
need to label these things, and that's anytime we talk about them, that's what it needs to be until people get good grip.
It might not be a bad idea, Bob. Unfortunately, you have to have the cooperation of the media in most of those things. They don't want to, they don't want to participate and help you out of that if it's not pushing their agenda.
Yeah. Well, anytime I'm talking to somebody, that's what they say that, oh, I just think about you flu or whatever. I put it out there every time. All right, I got to run for work.
All right. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate you coming in and joining us this morning. Number to call, 433-3150. 433-3150 if you would like to sound off. Sorry, I was hearing a weird noise, and I thought it was in my system, but it's somebody outside the studio. Okay. 433-3150 if you would like to be part of it. We'd love to see what you have to say. Feel free to, just drop us a line. Let's get it going on here. And we will we'll do it to it. 907-433-3150. Powered by our friends over there at Satellite West. You can find out more about them at satellitewest.com. I mean, the Democrats and the progressives have been very good about the labeling, what Bob the voter was just talking about, the labeling of things. I mean, probably one of the prime examples is the whole assault weapons idea, that somehow has come to actually mean something. And I mean, assault weapon is what? I mean, a weapon that you can assault with. I mean, that could be an assault hammer. It could be an assault lamp base. It could be an assault knife or sword or machete. But no, assault weapon has come to mean, because they've utilized it and the mainstream media has backed them up on it, as a semi-automatic sporting rifle. That has become the assault rifle. And so, yeah, we've seen how that language has come to mean certain things in the world. And that is, I agree, Bob. Maybe we should take some of that back. I don't know as we should get ad hominem, though, the Fauci flu thing. I don't know if that is helpful, because, you've got to find something that's kind of, it's like they've become very good about, it's no longer gun control. Now it's gun safety. I keep going back to the firearms, but really it's some of the most prominent examples of changing the language out there. But it's not gun control. Now it's gun safety, because that's inoffensive. And who could argue with gun safety? So, but, maybe we should find ways to capture some of that language and put it to our good use. But again, you have to have the cooperation of the mainstream media complex. They really, and if they're not in your corner, they're not going to report it the way that you want. I mean, if, I used to say it wasn't assault weapons, they're battle rifles, right? That's what or sporting rifles. But it doesn't matter how many times that you put those into, you try and put those, it doesn't matter, because they've got an agenda and they're going to stick with the words that fit and match their agenda. So there you go. Anyway, I guess we'll probably discuss this a little bit more on Thursday as we get ready to do our thing then. All right, we're coming up on the break, and so now is the time that I guess we need to close the phones, and we'll jump back into this here. Chris Story is going to be our guest in just a moment, and we'll dive into it. We'll dive into it with him. There you go. We got more coming up. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return with more in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Chris Story on the other side.
broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the break right now. Ready to rock and roll. It's gonna be good stuff. Let's see. I'm looking up here. Yesterday, blah 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 blah. Thing of the deal. Ben Carpenter. Hate the thought they circumvented the process for recall. They're not thinking about it. Will swing against them later. Okay. This is interesting. Jimmy says, building guns and knives. Time to start building relationships. Probably the hardest thing to do in life. But Jimmy, one of the most rewarding, my friend. I mean, one of the most rewarding thing is building relationships. It's not always easy. There's no doubt about it. But some of the most rewarding things are building relationships. That's 100% true right there. 100% true. Anyway, thanks for sharing out there on the show this morning. All right. We are going to get into it with Chris Story, who is going to be joining us in just a hot second. As soon as I call him, he's going to be joining us. How about that? I don't want him to freak out here. Let's get him squared away. Get him squared away. Not that he has a propensity or anything. Good morning. How are you, sir?
Doing fantastic, on top of the world.
Okay, good.
Let's build a relationship and call it a knife.
Let's build a relationship I want to build the relationship of this sword, my friend. A relationship of this sword.
Hey.
So how you doing? You're sounding a little deep and bassy this morning. You're trying out your new system?
Oh, yep. Using the microphone, the whole Roadcast system. Is it coming through okay?
Yeah. No, it's very different than what you normally sound like. It's just you got a little more presence. I don't know if we need that, but we got a little more presence going on here this morning. So
could I be more present?
Yeah.
It's funny because it's reliant on cellular technology, because I'm using Bluetooth to connect to the board, and then the board is connected to this, a broadcast quality microphone. So I'm hoping that it sounds a little bit different than just a phone call. But one of these days, maybe I'll take you up on the video cast. But for now, I need to.
Well, you saw how easy it was yesterday. Chris and I were actually doing some testing yesterday with the new broadcast software that we're using. And
I felt your disappointment when I said, I just don't want to be on video. And you were I could feel the disgust coming through the camera.
I mean, just, why do I be afraid to try new things? You're the one that's always telling people that they need to try new things. Chris just doesn't want to see his face as he concentrates and thinks about what he's saying. Apparently he sticks his tongue out or something while he does that out the side of his mouth. Like he's trying to fix a bolt or something, Barbara says that this setup gives your voice a Morgan Freeman quality. So,
nice.
I don't think you can.
Let's see if we can get out of this Shawshank Penitentiary together.
Exactly. So, Chris, what are we going to be? What's our topic going to be today?
To be or good enough.
To be or good enough. All right, that's sounds like my life. So, I mean, I'm down with this. I'm down with this. I mean, it used to be, I used to say, my wife slaps me now every time I say it. I used to say something like close enough for the girls I run with. You know what I mean? It was just like, one of those things. I don't know why she was offended by it, but anyway. Barbara says it must be because you want to work in your PJs. That's why you don't want to have video, because you don't want to have to get
She's
dressed.
Assuming I wear PJs.
Whoa. This is a family show, my friend. It's a family show.
Hey, the long nightgown. It's a nightgown.
And your stocking cap. All right. Hold the line, Chris Story. We're going to be right back to you. Chris Story, the man from Homer, joins us for our weekly life coaching lesson. That's coming up next. Folks, like and share, like and follow. Make sure you ring the bell on YouTube and do all the YouTube-y stuff. Let's get things back to it, shall we? The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. All right, welcome back to the program. Continuing now, Chris Story, the man from Homer, joins us to discuss life, the questions, the universe, and everything else. And, of course, give us our weekly dose of positivity, as we like to call it around here. Today's topic, he says, is to be or good enough. What? I mean, what? Again, this sounds a little bit like my life in general. Chris Story, ilovehomeralaska.com. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Michael, I'm on top of the world. So happy to be here with you and loving your new setup. I've been watching a little bit this morning. It looks fantastic.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I mean, minor changes from the visual side of it, but it's pretty cool what we can do now. You yourself are on a brand new setup today, sounding a little more bassy. Give me a little bit more volume there and we'll be good to go. So, Chris, to be or good enough, what's it about, my friend?
You know, Michael, I think each of us arrives with a full quiver of gifts, talents, opportunities, and we can make of them what we wish. And the more you use your gifts that you showed up with, even if they're a bit undeveloped or in the rough right now, the more you use these gifts, the more you will grow, the more your gifts and talents will grow. And it's obvious, anybody who, like myself, quit playing piano at a very young age, quit the lessons by year one, I look back and think, wait a minute, maybe I wasn't, quote, gifted with, talent in musical, but I cut myself short. I really don't know. I kind of went, good enough. I've got middle C figured out. And really, I was a drummer, and all I wanted was some timing sense with the piano lessons. That's all I really wanted. But so maybe I got out of it what I really wanted. But the point is, you can decide to be and then be all you can be, or you can at any point say, good enough. And when you don't use your talents, when you don't use your gifts, they diminish. Use it or lose it. They just lay dormant, and then they go and sort of calcify over, and they're gone potentially. You can, however, you can go back and re-implement. You can start again. It's never too late. You can choose right here, right now, to go back to those gifts or go back to the quiver and go, I hear this guy saying that I was born on purpose and with a purpose. I don't know what that is. I just work at this job, or I do this or that. My suggestion is that we each take a minute and just sort of evaluate as we approach a shift in the economy. You can feel it like a chill in the air. You feel it. It's coming. The shift is coming for each of us. Now is the time to really take advantage of the gifts that we came here with and make sure that we're trying to be all we can be versus just good enough.
I think a lot of people, well, this again comes back to self-analysis. A lot of people are in their, we talk about the comfort zone, right? Mm-hmm. The comfort zone is like, good enough. It's like walking into the kitchen and throwing your napkin at the trash can and it bounces off the wall and hits the floor and you're like, good enough. I don't want to bend over and pick it up. There have been a few times in life when I felt that way, but I've still, bent over and pick it up, throw it away. Sometimes you got to stretch and it feels good because, things are clean and everything's picked up. And you realize that if not everybody did that, pretty soon we'd have napkins all over the floor, dirty napkins all over the floor kind of thing, right? That's in my mind. I'm like, what kind of example are you setting for your children or whatever if you don't clean up after yourself and yada, yada, yada. Sometimes it's not just your expectations. Sometimes you've got to, you got to have people that'll hold you accountable, people that you trust, people that you love, mentors, whatever, that help you hold you accountable to that. So it's never just good enough.
I agree. And your show is a prime example of that. Let's just take a look at it. What did we just talk about? You're on a new broadcast system for anybody on Facebook and YouTube. You're trying to enhance the experience for that end user. Ultimately, you'll be able to enhance the end user's experience on the radio, the traditional, radio listener as well, because of the comments you're going to be able to more easily access. You are constantly trying to improve the program. You've asked me not to reappear. That's again trying to improve
doing my
the
best
program. Constantly, you're never ending improvement. That's what this show is about. That's what you've dedicated a large part of your life to, is broadcasting and improving on this art of communication. I wrote the book Born to Live based on my personal experience with the 2008-9 financial crisis, the global crisis that rocked millions of people's lives, including my own. And so I wrote that book, Born to Live, based on what I was facing, the pit that I was facing, and wrote this sort of metaphorical book around the choices we all have in life. And ultimately, it kind of sums up with three things, to look forward, learn from your past, but live in the present. And when I say live in the present, I don't mean live for this moment, because you have to be looking ahead. You have to be thinking about what's to come, what is coming, where you want to go, where you want to end up. But at the same time, if you miss this moment, if you don't pay attention to where you are today, what you've got today, you're not going to be ready for that future, and you're going to miss the real good life. I mean, Tony Robbins has made Jim Rohn's philosophy incredibly famous, that say the winter is, some people play in the winter. They ski, they have a great time. Others who aren't prepared get frozen. They freeze. Sometimes they freeze to death. And so I think as we think about these gifts that we're here with, we arrive with, and it's our job to polish them. It's our job to pull them out of the quiver of life and say, wait a minute, this is something I'm really interested in. I really want to develop this. My suggestion is that you handle your business. You become a CEO of YOU. And that sounds cheesy, but it's a reminder to me constantly in my life, wait a minute. I'm the CEO of me. I'm the CEO of this opportunity. Nobody is going to interrupt me and say, here's more opportunity, unless I'm in the race already and I'm handling my business. So become the CEO of YOU, even if you're employed. Maybe there's 6 layers of management between you and any decision. You're still your own CEO. And I think if you handle your life that way, you show up at a job that you may not even like. You show up better able to handle the job and then be rewarded with the next opportunity, because you're delivering more in use value than you're taking in cash value.
Well, it's a mental shift, right? I mean, we talk about this. The only thing we can really control in our lives is how we react to circumstances. And even if you have a job you hate, if you've decided that you are going to be the captain of your own ship and your own CEO, it makes even those jobs that you may dislike, it may make it easier.
But also I think you'll show up in a way that makes you the next candidate for advancement or opportunity. Somebody will see you and go, wait a minute. Well, there's a guy called Brian Buffini. He's a real estate coach and mentor to thousands of people. And he says he's constantly, for his company, of which he employs 300 to 400 people at any given time, he's constantly interviewing the barista making his coffee. He's constantly interviewing the clerk, the cashier, the person, like, for example, you said at Fred Meyer's, that you'll go out of your way to stand in that particular person's line just because of how they approach their job in life.
Right.
He's constantly interviewing people who have no clue. They might be rewarded with a new opportunity if they simply had showed up in that job, which maybe they hated because they're really home writing their screenplay or manuscript, or they just want something. They want to be the CEO of the Starbucks Corporation or wherever they're working, but they don't want to put in the time necessarily, or they resent where they're at in the ladder of life today, and that shows. You can't hide that. So if you just show up as though this were the opportunity, you might just get it.
You actually hit on a little bit of that in your book, The Backyard Millionaire, where the character is working in a job that really, they're not super fond of. That character is engaged at the cash register, which I always found to be that. In fact, that was my Fred Meyer clerk was the first thing that came to mind when I was reading that scene in your book. Because it is that impression that you make on people is important. And sometimes, like you said, you don't know when you may be being about to be handed a golden opportunity that you would not have gotten before. So, I mean, it just harkened me back to that scene in your book.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And that was a real life scene that literally happened in my life. Somebody I paid a little attention to, they paid some attention to me, and they ended up paying me with a book. And I say pay because it changed my life, altered the course of my life, the book did. And I'll never forget that. And he just recently passed away. And after almost 30 years of mentorship that he really probably didn't even realize what he had done for me. I think about him constantly. And every time I look at that book cover, I think about him and other people in my life that have influenced me and helped me harness maybe a gift that I didn't really recognize I arrived here with. Michael Gerber's got a great series of books. And if you own a business, I think it's incumbent upon you to read one of them at least. And it's called The E-Myth. So Entrepreneurial Myth. And what he's saying is, with the word myth, is that nobody shows up here born entrepreneurial. I mean, we're all creative. Everybody has the opportunity to be entrepreneurial, and this country rewards that. And you have ingrained in our founding documents the pursuit of happiness, which I truly read as entrepreneur. You have the opportunity to be your own boss, whatever it is that makes you happy. But in his book, the entire philosophy is kind of wrapped around this one idea. Work not just in your business, but work on your business from 30,000 feet up. So if you literally do own your own company, imagine you have to answer to a board of directors. Imagine that Monday you have to give a report to your board of directors and justify how you spent your time last week, how you intend to spend your time this week, and your company's resources, your money. How do you intend to use and utilize the people and talent you have on your staff? If you are an employee, imagine you're going to show up for a performance review today. How will you show up? How will you, as the CEO of your own business, how will you show up and work on your business, not just in it? How will you show up and work on your job, not just at it?
I mean, I think that, again, it just goes back to that mindset of how do we deal with those things, and and we have to make that decision. The prime thing on that is, and I guess what really sticks out to me is, those are decisions that we have to make ahead of time. You can't make those decisions objectively if you're in the midst of reacting to something. You've got to make the decision ahead of time that I am going to be X in any situation, or that I'm going to find the positive in any situation. You can't do it while you're in the midst of, a crisis of some kind.
Exactly. I agree. And anybody who is settled, when we settle and say, good enough, when winter comes, it's our harvest that'll freeze first if we're not prepared. And I think if you do just decide, good enough, you immediately have already chosen to be one of the people out in the cold versus playing in the cold when winter arrives. And it's just inevitable. And not to sound like Chicken Little, but inevitably there will be a shift every so many years in every economy. And you can look at history for 500 years or 1,000 or 6,000 years of recorded history and see that shifts come constantly. And those who are prepared, those who have been delivering more in use than receiving in cash, always do better, always win, and are poised for the opportunities that winter brings.
So to be or good enough. I mean, final thoughts here as we wrap things up. I mean, again, it's that mentality of settle for. I've never been one in my own life to be kind of a settle for mentality. I've always strived to give a little extra or do a little extra, or I'm happy. Don't get me wrong. I'm just not satisfied. I'm not like always constantly grasping, but I always want to do more. I always want to stretch. I always want to strive. Is that what you're talking about?
I think so. I went to a seminar where Les Brown, I traveled 2,000 miles to just go see a speaker named Les Brown. And in the seminar, he said he had everybody stand up and reach. He said, reach as high as you can. And then he waited a beat. Everybody's reaching up. Everybody in professional suits and dresses and pantsuits. Everybody's reaching as high as they can. Then he says, okay, reach a little higher. And every single person in the room reached just a little higher. He said, wait a minute, I told you to begin with to reach as high as you can. Why didn't you? You've got more in you. There is something else for you. You can reach higher. You can do more. You can go a little further. You've got more gas in the tank, even though it's more expensive than it's ever been in your lifetime. You have reserves. You have more in the tank. And now is the time to step on the accelerator.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Again, I think everything that Chris and I talk about every week, and I'm the guy that kind of busts it down to the most. If I have any skill, it's trying to take complex ideas and making them as simple as possible, because I'm a simple man. But everything that Chris and I talk about always, it seems, comes back to, in the end, back to mindset, to how you decide to handle things, how your mind is in every circumstance. And I think in this circumstance, again, it's just not to accept that settle for mentality. Good enough for me is never good enough. I always want to put one more cherry on top. I always want to take one more step. I always want to stretch one more inch. It's just something that's in my nature that's been built up over the years. And I think it's done well for me. And I would expect that other people would experience the same thing.
Yeah, I agree, Michael. I appreciate it. And that's what I think people keep coming back to your program. And I was just talking to somebody the other day who said, man, I really love your segments with Michael Dukes. I love his show. And I think what you do for Alaska and your national and global audience on the internet is important and powerful. And I think it's, just one of the many gifts you've got that you've obviously harnessed.
How do you spell your last name? I got to write it on the check correctly here. Hold on a second here. Chris Story.
World.
Yeah, Chris Story, the man from Homer. His books are legend in my household. Backyard Millionaire, Born to Live, Making of Man. He's working on sequels right now for everything, and I look forward to seeing those, reading those, and performing those as well. Chris, thank you, my friend, for coming on board this morning. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you, Michael.
If you would hold on for just a second, I have one question from the chat room, which we will answer during the break real quick here if we can. And we will get in on that. Chris Story, the man from Homer. I recommend you go to ilovehomeralaska.com and find all of his books and everything else. Plus, you can find some of them on audible.com, read by yours truly. All right, we're going to continue with more. One final segment ahead, the Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Our light, our guide, and our trusted friend. Michael Dukes Show.
Okay, we're in the break real quick with Chris Story. I don't want to take up too much of his time, but I thought this was a great question, and I wanted to share it with Chris. This is from Rick, and he said, what is Chris Story's story? What event in his life had such an impact to make him be so positive? And I don't think you've ever really come out with that all over. So you got about 4.5 minutes here, Chris. If you can summate for us your entire life in 4 minutes, why are you so positive? What event in your life made you so positive?
That's a great question, Rick. Thank you, Michael. I was born in a womb not far from here. And I think, if I'm being honest, 100% honest, I think becoming a teenage father, I think, was a turning point, or a point in my life where my then girlfriend, now wife of 34 years, we had to make a real choice in life, and against all odds, decide and determine that we would determine our own destiny, and that a child at 16 years of age wasn't going to destroy our life, wasn't going to ruin our life, wasn't going to become something that would hold us back or down. And I think, to be quite frank, that's when I really started to look at positivity, optimism. I come from a family of people that are, entrepreneurial. My parents, my grandparents, great-grandparents. And so that end of things wasn't I wouldn't say, I was born innately entrepreneurial, but I was exposed to it at a very, very young age, constantly. My dad worked on his job, but then always had side businesses, and we worked in those side businesses. So that element of my life, I attribute to them, and I'm grateful for what they exposed to us. On the other hand, like I say, if there was an event that I think was a turning point in being able to make decisions for myself and determine that I was the captain of my own ship, determinant of my own fate, it would have been that moment when we discovered we were about to have a baby in high school.
That I didn't know that. So that's an interesting point, because at that
and I'm
point,
not recommending that route.
No.
That's not an endorsement or a recommendation. It's just literally, to answer Rick's question, that was a that was a turning point. It was a pivotal moment with which we both, Tiffany and I both, had to determine, okay, this isn't the end of us. This isn't going to destroy our lives. We're going to become better and stronger. And not to say that it was always easy, but that's exactly what's happened.
Well, because it's interesting, because if you look at history and of course everything else, you see that anytime teenagers become parents, it usually is, it's a very tough struggle, and it probably you've wrecked your lives kind of thing, but you made a decision to do exactly the opposite, to use it as a reason and a springboard to move forward, which I find that not only commendable, but I think just, exemplary of what we could do.
We would walk the beach and talk about our future, imagine our future. We began to vision cast. We began to use vision boards before there was even something like that exposed to us. We were taking pictures and like, this is what we want. I never thought in terms of enough. I always thought in terms of, I want to start a university. You don't need a high school diploma, you idiot. What do you mean you start? There's always this sort of grander, bigger vision, and it's still pulling me forward and pulling me towards something. The beach walks in the book, The Backyard Millionaire, were taken directly from not my conversations with a singular person, but the many walks that Tiffany and I took early on in life as we would imagine and envision where we were going and what we're going to do. And we both pinch ourselves once in a while and say, oh, and each other. I'm kidding. But we think, wow, this is amazing. We love our life, and we love growing and learning together. We still take courses together. She's taking courses right now on how to create courses, which we're going to use for the Backyard Millionaire, and our goal of helping 1,000 people become backyard millionaires themselves.
I love it. I love it. Sign me up for the early class. That's all I'm saying. Good stuff. And heartening to know that Chris Story is still human. That's what we like to hear. I love it. I love it. I hope that Rick also says he hopes that you're telling your story at high schools. I hope that you're getting this out to the young people from a very young age. That would be interesting to walk around and talk about, not endorsing teen parenthood, but let me tell you what it did for me. I think that's a powerful story, and I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing with us, Chris. And
you're welcome.
And with that, I guess I'll let you go. We could do this all day, but you got other things to do. So thanks for coming on board.
Thank you, Michael. Take care.
Chris Story, the man from Homer, doing his thing here on the Michael Duke Show. We appreciate that. All right, one final segment of the show here this morning as we get ready to wind things down. Great, what a great thank you, Rick, for asking the question. I would never have known that story. Well, I mean, maybe sometime in the future, but I would never have guessed that of Chris as we go through. So I appreciate you sharing that with it. Rick says, so it all started with your parents, or it started with your parents. You were influenced by them. Excellent. I would hope that I would be that kind of influence on my children. That would be the thing. I would hope that I would be I would hope that I would be a good influence on my children in that way, that if they had that kind of problem, that they would excel in it. So it's good stuff. Any good news today? Well, maybe we'll see if we can find some. How about that? Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. All right. Welcome back. I would love to hear from you here this morning. We're into one final segment of the show. We were just talking with Chris Story during the break there. Somebody asked him about, what makes him so positive? What an interesting story about what he attributes to his positivity in life and where he came from. And I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're going to have to go back and You're going to have to go back and listen on the podcast if you missed it. But what an interesting story. I loved it. And so thank you to Rick for asking the questions, and thank you to Chris for sharing your life with us and sharing a little bit of your history and where everything is. All right, one final segment of the show this morning. Again, a quick reminder, if you're just joining us and you missed it earlier in the program, I'm sorry if I sound repetitive, but I want to remind people that I will be that this Friday I will be on vacation. And I was actually only going to take Friday off, but my wife pointed out to me that our travel times were pretty tight. And it would be very tough for me to get back and do the show on Monday morning. And so therefore I have decided that I will take Monday off as well, making it a 4-day weekend. I'm hiatus on Friday and Monday. You will have alternate programming on the various radio stations and FM translators around the state for Friday and Monday, and I will be returning to the airwaves a week from today on Tuesday with again the deep dive and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you come in and check that out and deal with that there. So just a reminder. And then Rick says mention your coffee mug. The coffee mug, that is huge. We did have some swag for sale on the show here recently, and I ended up with a few extra pieces of merchandise, coffee mug, 6 o'clock club coffee mugs, and some t-shirts and a few other things. If you have any interest in that, I posted it up on our Facebook page. You could see some pictures there, but you can reach out to me on my email address, me@michaeldukeshow.com, me@michaeldukeshow.com. We're actually kind of becoming like a real thing around here. Actually considering putting together an actual store on the website where you can actually buy stuff for reals. I mean, why you guys would want to have my face plastered on your shirt, my beard plastered on your shirt, I don't know. But I'm very grateful for people who we had a bunch of folks sign up, and we got a bunch of mugs and stuff out. And the mugs are huge. They're like 15, 16 ounce big ceramic. I wanted a coffee mug that felt great in the hand, and I found exactly that. And we now have them for sale. Let's see how good it is. It's good stuff. 6 o'clock club member mugs. Go check it out. Okay. One final segment of the show this morning. Phone lines are open at 907-433-3150. 907-433-3150, powered by our friends over there at Satellite West. You can find them at satellitewest.com. And you can call us up and tell us what your thoughts are this morning. So somebody else asked about the good news. They like the good news. The good news is a segment that we do every week where we read you a few stories about the good news. Just because we can't always live with the bad drip all the time. So here's a story out of Sacramento that will make you smile and love life a little more. A 7-year-old from Sacramento was the unlikely savior of a 3-year-old toddler who would have certainly drowned without help. Last week, 7-year-old Messiah Brown went down to enjoy the pool at the apartment complex where he lives when he noticed something out of the ordinary. He said, "I was just playing in the pool and I saw a boy at the bottom of the pool." He said, "and I went to go get him. Swimming down into 6 feet of water, he grabbed the arm of the 3-year-old toddler whose eyes and mouth were open, pulled him to the surface where a relative of Messiah's, 9-year-old Savannah, helped pull them both out into solid ground. Adults who had caught wind of what had happened called 911, raced down to help. Savannah's mother performed CPR on the child, who was helped to breathe again by the time fire and rescue had arrived. The child was transported to the hospital, and Messiah's father, Marcus, an Olympic boxer who represented the United States at the 2012 Olympics in London, said his son loves the water and swims like a fish, but that despite the surprise, it really typed who Messiah is. He said he's super empathetic, So for him to do something like that, I mean, it's really nothing out of the norm. It's just crazy that he's 7 years old and he's doing something like that. 7 years old, hailed as a hero. 7-year-old Messiah Brown. Good for you, my friend. Good for you. That's kind of stuff. And this was a story that, gosh, I wish I had been smart enough to do this with my best friend. A pair of friends have been taking photos in a photo booth together every 5 years since they were 10 years old. And they just snapped their 50th anniversary photo. Two 60-year-olds, Keith Lawton and Martin Dowell, went down to Skegness Station, where they crammed into the photo booth for the 10th time, grinning for the camera to commemorate 50 years of friendship. Keith is now a retired probation worker who took the first picture together with his friend Martin at Woolsworth in Lincoln. And they, by chance, found themselves back in the same shop 5 years later and decided to recreate the original. And they had so much fun that they did it for the next 50 years. Now both 60 years old. And there's a whole picture of them, strips of them side by side as young boys going on to adulthood, and now as I was going to say elderly gentlemen, but I'm only 8 years away from 60, so I guess I won't say elderly gentlemen. I'm saying as full-grown adults. How about that? But it's so, I mean, that is just such the coolest story. And it goes on to tell you more about it. He goes, it's weird to look back at two 10-year-olds with sweet little innocent faces and then look at the others and think about everything you go through in life together. He said, our lives haven't been anything other than two normal guys. We haven't done anything spectacular or catastrophic. We've just always kept that friendship. That's a pretty amazing story. I mean, it puts a smile on my face. I guess that means it must be the good news. So thank you for asking for that, Jimmy. I had that on the back burner. I meant to do that. So it's a great story. And so I'll throw those stories up in the chat room for folks to go check out as well. All right, folks, tomorrow's another day. We may or may not be speaking to Mike Shower. Don't know yet. I haven't confirmed, but still working on Sarah Palin, maybe Mayor Charlie Pierce. On Thursday, we're going to be doing some firearm stuff because, of course, I am on vacation on Friday and Monday. I'm going to keep saying that just so that nobody's surprised. I don't want to be getting text messages at 6 o'clock in the morning when I'm sleeping because I'm on vacation. Friday and Monday, I'm off. I am on hiatus. Alternate programming will be involved. All right, my friends. Thank you for coming on board. We will see you tomorrow. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. We'll see you later. Have a great day. Geez, Rick, that's poignant and sad at the same time. Rick says, at some point in our childhood, we said goodbye to our friends for the last time and didn't even know it. Damn, son. Try not to put a tear in my eye so early in the morning, will you? It's kind of spooky stuff there. Ugh. Sandy said the 6 o'clock club was mentioned on KSRM Sound Off the other day. Interesting. I wonder what that was about. I don't know. You'll have to tell us about it, Sandy. All right, folks. Gotta flee. Time to get back to it. Time to get back to it and get on with it. Thanks for coming in and joining us. The Michael Dukes Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Oh, look, I can see that I didn't realize the software could tell me that there were 31 likes on the like the show. I can actually see them now. I didn't realize that until just now. 30. Like the show. Follow the show. Like and share. Do all the things. The Facebook and the YouTube things. Do it all. Thank you, my friends. We will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.